Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu laying the groundwork for their Middle East agenda as the U.S. president hosts the Israeli prime minister at the White House.
Mr. Trump said he would like a deal for the permanent resettlement of Palestinians in Gaza. He said they could go to countries beyond Egypt and Jordan, both of which had previously dismissed the notion. Mr. Trump had earlier said Palestinians had no alternative but to leave the enclave, given the level of destruction. He made the comments after he signed an executive order to stop funding for UNRWA, the UN agency aiding Palestinian refugees.
I think that Gaza maybe is a demolition site right now. If you look at Gaza, there's hardly a building standing, and the ones that are going to collapse. You can't live in Gaza right now, and I think we need another location. I think it should be a location that's going to make people happy.
The Israeli prime minister is the first foreign leader to be hosted by Mr. Trump since he took office last month. And they are set to hold a joint press conference and are expected to discuss the threat posed by Iran, the future of the Gaza truce, as well as the return of hostages.
I support getting all the hostages out and meeting all our war goals that include destroying Hamas's military and governing capabilities and making sure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again.
All right, for more, Nick Harper joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Nick, thanks for coming on today. The leaders, they've already spoken about Gaza, what they'd like to see happen there. What more can you tell us about their initial comments, and what can we expect to hear as we await their press conference?
Yeah, very interesting. I think it's worth noting those comments from Donald Trump doubling down on that suggestion that Palestinians should quite simply be moved out of Gaza. It's worth bearing in mind that that is a complete break with US foreign policy. For decades, Washington has been pushing this idea of a two-state solution. Donald Trump is instead saying that Palestinians should be shipped out to other countries. During those comments, he suggested up to 6 different locations. He said it should be a beautiful town where they can live and not die, and had suggested that although Jordan and Egypt don't seem on board at the moment, he said that many countries have reached out that would like to participate in that. Both leaders also speaking about the hostages, their desire to get all of them returned safely. And it's worth just noting Benjamin Netanyahu's comments that we heard in that clip there, him making it very clear that he does not feel that Israel has managed to eradicate Hamas, and that remains one of his 3 main goals. The sticking point is that the second phase of the peace deal that they still need to negotiate and talk about, we're likely to hear more comments shortly during the press conference. Part of that is all about withdrawing Israeli troops from Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu making it clear, though, that may not be what he wants to achieve.
So, Nick, President Trump spoke earlier about Iran after reimposing tough sanctions. How do you expect this to play out, given the president's comment about Tehran potentially trying to assassinate him?
Yeah, 2 weeks into Donald Trump's second presidency, and he's making it very clear that he is going hardline against Tehran. This is all part of what's being called a maximum pressure campaign, like we saw during his first administration. And it's all about trying to deny Iran any ability to try and achieve making a nuclear weapon. We're told that this is an economic pressure campaign, that the Secretary of State is working with the Treasury, aiming at driving Iran's oil exports completely to zero and therefore cutting off their revenue sources. It'll involve sanctions and enforcement mechanisms for anyone who violates it. But Donald Trump really being very clear that he intends to back Israel and do everything he can to stop Iran over the coming months and years.
Nick Harper, thanks for that. Nick Harper live in Washington, D.C.
All right, for more insight, we are joined by Gregory Treverton. He's a professor of the practice of international relations and spatial sciences from the University of Southern California. He once served as chairman of the U.S.'s National Intelligence Council and was part of a Senate Select Committee on Intelligence as well. The perfect person to talk to. Professor Treverton, so a pivotal meeting taking place right now. I mean, what are both leaders hoping to achieve from this meeting? And are there any surprises we can expect from the summit?
I think there will be surprises. And we know that what they'd like, right? That Trump would like a quick end to the war in Gaza. And Netanyahu is on a different wavelength, obviously, thinking that it may need to continue into the second phase. So I think they do have some differences of opinion. They will certainly try and make the best front they can, but I think there are some real differences. Trump really wants a quick end to the war in Gaza, and Netanyahu has to say he does, but he's under pressure from the hardliners in his cabinet to continue. Exactly what finishing the job would mean after all these months of war is not entirely clear, but it's always been the case that this second phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement was always very questionable. It was, 6 weeks long, and exactly what's supposed to happen. It was supposed to end with all the hostages getting released and with Israeli troops withdrawing from Gaza. That always seemed highly improbable. So my guess is the two will put the best face on what's happened and hope that they can again begin to negotiate. Both sides have sent people to Qatar to begin the phase 2 negotiations. So I think they will try hard to kind of put the best face on what's happening and make it look like maybe there is peace closer than we've seen before.
Professor, Prime Minister Netanyahu is the first foreign leader to meet President Trump since his inauguration last month. He went to Washington looking for a strong endorsement from the U.S. leader. Do you think he's going to get what he came for?
Well, I think he'll get a strong endorsement, and that they've been close for a long time. So I think he'll get some strong endorsement. The big uncertainty, it seems to me, is what that means in terms of actual physical support. There again, Iran is always in the background, and we've seen in Trump 1, we saw the maximum pressure campaign that didn't have much effect either on Iran's nuclear program or its activities in the region. What's halted its activities in the region is conflict, military conflict, and the fact that its proxies have been badly beaten by Israel and with some help from the United States and others. So that's always in the background. And obviously Trump has put on maximum pressure campaign 2, but he's also sort of left open the possibility of some negotiation. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some effort to couple pressure, sort of classic Trump. You make a big threat, do some real pressure, and then hope that'll get you a better place at the negotiating table. So both Iran and Gaza are very much in play and trying to make the ceasefire in Gaza work while then doing something to contain Iran or maybe even to elicit its participation in negotiations. That's a nifty trick. That's the big puzzle that I think Trump faces, and how he plays this out with Netanyahu is going to be fascinating to watch.
And Professor, President Trump stated that Palestinians have no choice but to leave Gaza while calling for relocating them to neighboring countries like Jordan and Egypt. And how do you interpret this comment in the context of ongoing discussions about Gaza's future and Palestinian rights? Is this even a feasible solution?
I don't think so. I don't think any of the countries, particularly not Egypt and Jordan, they've been quite clear they don't want Palestinians. And as we've seen before, the Arab countries have been willing to talk strong things about the Palestinians, but not do much for them. So I would expect that pattern to continue. What's visibly missing is the other place they might go, which is a Palestinian state on the West Bank. That's a non-starter for Netanyahu. Interesting to see whether Trump even raises that or of it. So far, he's played by Netanyahu's playbook by saying he'd like these people to be raided in the West Bank. I think we've just begun to see what happens. Rebuilding of Gaza is going to be a very long time, and so something does need to be done in the interim, and exactly what that is, I think, will continue to be a sticking point between at least Israel and Arabs and maybe as well.
All right, we apologize for that break in audio there. Appreciate your insights, Professor, as we await the joint press conference with U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. That is Professor Gregory Treverton from the University of Southern California.